Now that we understand that these expectations are placed on men, we are going to start with the you have to be strong expectation because it lays the groundwork for a lot of how we are going to deal with the other two. So, the first idea is that if you are strong, it means that you can't be weak. And I know that that sounds really obvious, but it actually results in some really dangerous ideas forming. And one of the ideas that often forms for men is that if I have to be strong, it means that I can't be vulnerable. Because vulnerability starts to mean weakness, which makes perfect sense, by the way. Because, like if you think about a vulnerability in a defense, that is synonymous with a weakness. And so what we start to do is we start to stuff our emotions down because we can't show them to people because that would be weak. And so we stuff our emotions down and we hide them away. And the one emotion that we are sort of allowed by society to keep out as men is anger. That's the one emotion that it is okay for us to express. And this combination of stuffing our emotions down but allowing anger to stay out is really dangerous. Because what happens is when you stuff your emotions down, again, this sounds sort of weird, but those emotions sort of retain the age at which they were stuffed down. And so what ends up happening is as you grow older from a boy into a man, your body, your physical body and mind, sort of logical mind, become a man, but your emotions sort of stay a boy. And so when you think about kids, they do, like violent stuff all the time. Like they, like kick people in the shins, or they like, like rip up paper, or, like they'll destroy stuff in your house, whatever. But they're kids, so it's sort of fine. But when you have those kinds of urges, and you are a grown adult man, all of a sudden it is much, much more dangerous, and you can cause a whole lot more harm. And not just for those around you, but there are consequences that you have to suffer for your actions as well. So, now the question is, okay, this seems horrible. What do we do about it? So the first thing is to start to get underneath that anger. And the way that we do that is by starting to actually validate some of the anger. And I know. A lot of men, when they hear the word validate, they're like, "Oh, like I don't need to be validated. Validating doesn't really do anything for me." And that makes perfect sense because throughout your entire life, you have been taught that your emotions didn't matter. All that mattered was that you met the expectations. And so you learned a great way to problem solve. You learned that if I ignore my emotions, if I don't worry about validation or reassurance or any of that crap, and instead I just focus on solving the problem, everyone around will be happy with me. But the fact that you're here means that there's some sort of dissatisfaction in the way that that is working. So I want to start by validating that it makes sense that you feel angry because your entire life, everyone has disregarded your emotions and not listened to you, not made you feel heard. Now, if you felt anything from that, it's okay if you didn't. If you didn't, we are going to get into some other tricks that can sort of help you to feel some of your feelings. But the idea of this is that it helps you to dissipate the anger a little bit. As you validate it, the anger starts to dissipate, and you can start to feel other things like sadness. And so if you felt that, now there is room for me to reassure you by saying that the reason that this feels so scary and hard, the reason that vulnerability feels so scary and hard, is actually because it takes incredible strength. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is an incredible strength. And the more that you can embrace that, the better man you will be.